All right, well, hello. Welcome to the Design Build Show. I have with me Mr. Steve Sanonen. And how do you like your last name to be pronounced? Do I say it? How do you like it?
Perfect.
All right, good.
Sanonen.
And we're here at Post 390. We got a little right in the wine room right here. This is a great restaurant in Boston. Highly recommend it. And Steve is a great friend of mine.
Yep.
We've known each other for 10 plus years.
Yep.
I've met Steve fresh out of college. I worked at, I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I had a degree in architecture. And I remember one of our first conversations, Steve is an architect. We can say that now.
Hey.
He recently moved from Minnesota, where he was licensed, and it just transferred over to Massachusetts. But you know, I distinctly remember that. I remember you granting me a lot of you made me feel good right away.
Good.
And really validated me as somebody who knew what they were doing. You probably made me know more than I did as a result of that. But I remember you just asking for my opinion on drawings. We worked in a design studio, and I kind of wanted to be like, dude, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
I think everyone feels like that in the beginning, you know?
Yeah, but I played it off until I figured some stuff out.
Absolutely.
And now we have the opportunity to work together again, and it's been amazing. I mean, Steve, I am going to ask him questions and stuff, but I'm going to talk about him for a while. New England Design and Construction, we've had a few different architects here before, and Steve, and we're a design build firm, so I have to say it has been difficult in my experience outside of New England Design and Construction. I've met great architects and I've met not so great architects, and I feel like the way I have personal experience in that. The way an architect is trained today, you're not going to get it all, but you know, you are very unique in the sense that you are fully accountable for a project. You're rare, in my opinion, for an architect in terms of who just seems to naturally not just be focused on beauty and design, but function and buildability and cost. And you are somehow, I don't know, we can talk about how you became this way. It is just innate, or that's how you were trained, or what you observed, but it's really amazing to work with you because of your mindset. It's just you are thinking with a complete project and setting a project up for success.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for noticing.
Yeah. So how did you get that? Was it natural? Did you?
I think that it's just being really balanced and doing a lot of different things in my life. You know? I've worked some construction, very interested in art, very curious about things, how things go together, how things are made, right? Yeah. Growing up, I was very interested in building things and making things, so I just had a lot of interest in those things. I liked puzzles and games, and so I was always very interested in solving problems and how that works.
I love that about what we do.
Absolutely.
You told me a story while we were having dinner about how when you decided to be an architect. You want to tell that story?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I was very curious growing up, and I did a lot of different things. And in the 7th grade, we were asked to decide what we wanted to do in life. And it's I had no clue. I had never been thinking about that, but I had to at least come up with an idea of what I wanted to do. And I remember talking with my mother and saying, I really love art, and I really love science, but I don't know what to do with that, And she's the one who introduced me to the concept of being an architect, and that was my first step, was just seeing how art and science could merge together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. But where did you become aware of when we worked together? I can compare it to working with other architects, right?
Sure.
And you seem to not even notice you're like this, and that it's like every architect is like this. Every time I talk to you about it, I'm kind of amazed.
Yeah.
But like, is that in the when you started to train to become an architect? Did you get it right away? Did you get like that you were designing to build, and like that was the end product, and like could you talk maybe you had mentors or
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's because I did so many different things at the same time that they kind of blended together, and so I wasn't just focused on one thing like art or one thing like how a building goes together. It was all at the same time.
Okay.
And so it kind of shaped that way.
Got it.
In a way. And so doing artwork, I had the idea, had the appreciation of expression and concepts and creating emotional impact. Doing construction at the same time, I was literally building things, getting paid to do it professionally. And I also went to school, but then I also worked in an architecture office at the same time. So all of those things were going on at the same time, and that's how it kind of got all baked in.
Yeah. So you just, through doing all these things, you kind of you needed to have all these components together to have a great building.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I didn't realize I was that unique on that way, but I do. When you do continue to work with me and look at the drawings and things and the direction that I give, it is with the full understanding of the entire picture.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard you say a few times since being here, oh yeah, well, I'm new to design build, but like to me, I'm like, no, dude. Like you're doing it already. Like from what observation I've had is like even guys who call themselves builders or general contractors, or I'm an architect. The real greats, the ones that are like great at that field, they are that way because they are thinking outside their box. You know what I mean? And they're thinking with like the end product, and they might be filling a certain component. Like when you were working as an architect, you were not responsible for the build, but you're still like the awareness, like, hey, that's the end product. Yeah. And conversely, the great builder is thinking with, hey, I need to have a great design. I need to understand it. Like, otherwise, what I'm building is not going to be great. So
absolutely. But I also can have the point of view of contractors as well, in the sense that I've worked with them directly and even worked on projects, doing the work itself, designing something and actually building it. But it wasn't quite like this. But,
And I think your last firm, the firm in Minnesota you worked for, specialized in schools.
In schools, correct. Yeah.
And I've read this guy Gutman. You ever? John Gutman.
Definitely heard of him.
He's an architect, writer. But he had an observation, which was architectural firms that specialize and are not just like doing this, that, and the other thing. They can become more like comprehensive and more complete in that, because you actually start to know what things cost, right? So you're not just you're thinking with that too, right? And your client, that's one of the values you bring to a client.
Absolutely.
Have you noticed any differences though, working in a design build firm that are like uniquely different, or?
Well, it's kind of interesting because in some ways it's very similar, and yet in some ways it's very different. For example, working in an architecture office, I work directly with contractors all the time, but there's different delivery methods. So it might be a hard bid type project, and you've got a general contractor, or it might be a construction manager type thing. So you've got a construction manager that's working with the clients and the architects, and working with the subcontractors.
And working with you in the design phase?
Yeah. So they may not be involved in the actual design itself, but they have every bit of involvement in terms of material selection, costs, value engineering, what's going to be the best end product for the client. So that collaboration exists in many different forms. And so this one, it just so happens to be that I'm working within the office of the the contractor in that sense. And so, in some ways, like I said, it's different, and in some ways, it's not so different.
Yeah.
You know?
What's is it like? What are the benefits of working in the office with the contractor?
Yeah, what I love about it is just the direct feedback. You got a much stronger communication where you get immediate collaboration on the project, and you can iron out the details right there.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait till the end and then figure it out when it's too late.
Yeah.
You're already working together
In the
as a
design
team
process.
in the design
So we're still
process.
designing, but there's collaboration there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. And if there's, if things need to be tweaked a bit, you're right there as well.
Yeah.
But it's just much more of a streamlined collaboration, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, I love that too. And also there is the loop of so once construction is started, right? There is that feedback loop, like it's immediate there too, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's much more direct.
Yeah, and with architects, I don't know what your experience was, but not all clients have. It's like the involvement in construction can vary, right?
Yeah.
So that feedback might not always be there.
Yeah. But there's also different objectives at times, and so you can have some discord. Not that anyone intends to have it, but there's different objectives.
Yeah, like the feedback is could be more adversarial. Like, hey, they fucked this up, and then it's more not like just looking at it
as solving.
Oh, like hey, solving it, or how can we learn from this? But like,
look what happened.
It's like a liability game, right?
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. So you don't have that in this case,
Right.
And it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, and the client doesn't have it either.
That's true.
Which is really the benefit, I think, because in that situation where there is a issue that arises and there's, the client's in the middle. But with us, even when, we're not perfect, all our projects do not go 100% smoothly, but the thing I absolutely love is that it's like we own it. It's like we're gonna own it. We're gonna stand by it. There's nobody else to point the finger at. I love that fact that it's like not an option. It's like it's pretty cool. So just jumping subjects because I'm gotten more interested in this, and we were talking about it during dinner. But space and there's different various people. Elon Musk, this guy Navion, something or other. I was looking to set up colonies on the moon or Mars, and I was talking about how in our industry, there's a major defect in like 15 to 20% of projects, whereas in other industries like automobiles, airplanes, robotics, it always starts at 0.0 something. It always starts with a 0.0.
Yeah.
And you had a good observation, which was those are very repetitious, right? All those products, it's like you're doing a Ford, that year's Ford, it's like next one's going to be better but now all what we do is all custom.
Right.
But looking at like space travel, you don't have a room for error, right? Something they're all going to be design builders.
Yeah. Well,
they all.
There's going to be a lot of backup systems, that's for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A lot of redundancy.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of like quality control, a lot of backup systems.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, a big purpose, I do just see it as the best methodology to deliver a project to a client, and I think if done right, it produces the best buildings with the least amount of effort. Because you can do it other ways. Obviously, buildings are built all over the place they're not all design built, and they can be a great building. But you also got to look at like what was the effort, like what did it take to go into that, and what do you think about that?
Well, it's like I mentioned before, I find it very refreshing to have a much more streamlined operation, and there's a much closer collaboration, and I think it's just creates a better product because you're focused all on the same thing, and it's not competing attentions or distractions or different objectives. Right. That everyone's on the same path, moving in the same direction, on the same team, and I can see the value of that.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And in terms of like the education of an architect. I think you had more complete, or you just had a better mind. I don't know. You went into it, or maybe you were just like me when you got out of school too, and I just don't know about it. But what do you see there? Like, do you see a room for improvement in the way that the architect is trained today?
Well, from my experience, and I obviously it's been a while since I've been in school, but it's a long-term proposition. I mean, it's not uncommon to spend 8 or 10 years in the educational system to become an architect. So it's a long haul, or it can be.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be that long, but it can be.
Yeah.
For me, during that time, I was doing a lot of things. Like I said, I was working construction summers. I was working, in an architecture office while I was going to school. So, for me, in terms of education, I feel
was
like
that normal? Like when you went to when you were working at this architecture firm, and you were doing construction over the summers. Were they like, oh hey, that's awesome, you should be doing that, or was that like not usual? It
was not usual.
Yeah.
It was not usual. There's some guys that work construction, but most had never picked up a hammer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or when they were in school, they didn't work in an office, so everything was abstract. It was theoretical. It was academic, right?
Yeah.
And when they got out of school into an office, they couldn't connect what they learned in school with what they're actually doing in an architecture office. So it's like, not only did they not have the benefit of building things in construction, but they didn't really see how to apply the data they got in school in an office.
I understand,
So in terms of today, education today, definitely I would agree that some construction experience would be very helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's almost like should be a prerequisite, and I think the earlier the better, because going back in time, master builder, derivation of the word architect. You started off as an apprentice, then you were a journeyman, and then you were a master. And that's when you could tell people, hey, this is how you build, and direct them with drawings and what have you. Kind of makes sense,
It does.
And Vitruvius, the Roman architect, if you read his 10 books of architect, the first, it's 10 books. The first book is The Education of an Architect. It's like bang, bang, bang. He talks about the theory and the practical. And if you just have the theory, it's incomplete. He's like, you're chasing the shadow or something like this. And then, but if you just have the practical side, it's still incomplete, And so, they do need to be merged more. And I think the schools today are very theoretical, and we're going to change all that, man. I'm telling you, we're revolutionizing the world.
I mean, the one thing that I think is so cool is all of the technology that we have in terms of building and making things that isn't actually used because an architect or designer doesn't even know about it. In terms of, there is a lot more knowledge in terms of laser cutters and printers and things like that, but there's a lot of technology that, at least when I was in school, was not part of the equation. So there's so much that you can tap into to create and build better, but architects generally just don't know about it.
Oh, because they're disconnected from that field.
So
like, keep going with that. Like, so what could come out of that?
So there's things like an architect wouldn't even know what a builder could actually do. Like, I've run into contractors and artisans, you could say, that can do such unique things, at least to me was very unique, such skill that I didn't even ask them or require them to do that in the designs because I didn't know they could do it. So to give you an example, like if you're doing an office building, and inside, like in an office, think of a conference room that is glass, right? And you want a special shape of the aluminum, of the glass wall in there. They can do so many unique things with the tools that they have that nobody really requires that of them. But my main point is that if there is a disconnect, and if architects or designers were more communication and understood the construction process as it is today, you could get better products
Oh, 100%. There's this firm, Gluck,
Yeah.
which I've sent you some stuff on. Peter Gluck. He's one of the guys who brought back design build. Like, Google this firm. They have amazing videos, but they are like freaking design build, man. And just what you're saying, the thing I see that they do is they get all the trades involved, and they get like just what you're saying. Like, they know these guys have the data that's going to make the project better. They're going to help them solve the problem and create a design solution. And so they get them involved very early.
Yeah.
And they and I think that's a huge part of the benefit of design build is having that closeness and collaboration. You know, with all the trades, because you're gonna hire them, right? You're gonna be the one directing them to do the work. So like, why not just have them come and collaborate early?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like you were talking before about the master builder and the cathedral.
Yeah.
Right? He's the master guy.
Yeah.
Imagine if he didn't know that a technology exists to create stained glass.
Right.
How different that would be.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
That's
if he was disconnected from the the artisan of that. Yeah.
You know, that's just an example to say that you know the power of these Gothic cathedrals in many ways is the stained glass. But if you don't even know about that technology, you know, look at what you're missing.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought of another profession where it is so separated. Like, I just don't think it makes sense. And it's only been for, 150 years maybe where it's been separated. And I just think it's like, it makes too much sense. And like ever since it has been separated, there's been a push to get it back together. But you've had like, it's been like enforced to keep it separated. That's the only way it's been able to be separated is like, it's a law. It's like, architect is a legal term. The schools, it's like, that's how the education, it's like a force to the point where like most people today don't know. It's like, that's the way it's always been. When people quote Vitruvius, they don't quote that he's talking about he was a design builder and he's like, you need to know how to build and know the theory. They just quote the things that are more like theoretical.
Right.
So we've been duped telling them that. We're like, we're bringing it back. So, any final thoughts or?
Well, I appreciate the life you're putting into design build in terms of your interests and what you're trying to achieve. I think it really does serve the clients to have a real, team that's working together for the best interest of the client, and I can see that, and I think it's going to go a long way.
I do. I mean, and honestly, very, very much thanks to you.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we're going to go down in the record history books together because. Just your mindset, like you do get it, and it's awesome, and it's so, and your skill set is incredible, and really value and appreciate what you do, and looking forward to creating great buildings, and I think we are going to have a huge impact. So,
thank you.
Yeah. All right. Peace out. Thank you guys for watching. Check out the next show next week. Bye-bye. All right, man.